Hey guys, I wanted to make a video today on how to use the Big E wind reports. So I rate these reports every time I think the wind is going to be 15 miles an hour or more. And they are very, very accurate. So in 2018, I actually developed a system to analyze how accurate they are, and they're 97% accurate. For 2019, it's the same. So they're very, very accurate, but they're only accurate within the parameters that I define. They're only accurate within the context of the report. So I want to talk to you today about that context so you can use these reports to help you get more sessions on the water and to help you get more wind. So let's get into that and talk about the context of my reports. So what I want everyone to understand is I never write these reports for one particular beach. I write the reports for the Western New York area. I narrow it down sometimes to Lake Erie, Lake Ontario. I narrow it down sometimes to a particular city, village, location, but never one beach. And that's because these reports are written in advance. Oftentimes these reports are written 3 or 4 hours before it's going to be windy. So when you get in the car, that's when you have to decide what beach to go to. I can't be on the computer all the time updating what beach, and I don't want to do that either, because then everybody's going to end up at the same beach. It's going to be overcrowded. So it's really up to you to decide which beach to go to. Now, if you live on the lake and you sit on your porch and you look out at the lake, you can't just wait for it to be windy. You have to be willing to get in the car and drive to where it's going to be windy. Even in the Outer Banks, when I go there for our April trip, you still have to drive sometimes. You can't just sit on the porch and wait for it to get windy at your spot. You've got to be willing to get in the car and drive, and you got to figure out which beach is going to be windy at. So let's talk a little bit about that. So how are you going to decide which beach to go to before you start driving? So the first step would be to check the meters upwind of the location that you think you might be headed to. So if I think I might be riding at a beach near Buffalo, then I want to check what's going on in Ohio, what's going on in Pennsylvania, what's going on in Dunkirk. Check the locations upwind from where I think it might get windy. But I'm not going to go to a location just because the meter says it's windy now. I want to go to the location because of what the forecast says, combined with what the meter's doing now. So many times I'll see guys look up on their wind report, look up on the meter and see, oh, it's blowing 25 at such and such a location. And so they go there without looking at what the forecast says. So you really need to look at the forecast first and then look at what the meter is doing at the locations where you think it might be windy and use that combined information to decide which beach you want to go to. Also, it's very, very important to check the high resolution models frequently. You want to check all 16 models, approximately 16. That's what I use. Sometimes some of the services are unavailable, so sometimes there's less than 16. But generally, you want to check all 16 models frequently. But you really want to check the high resolution models very frequently because they're updated more frequently. So make sure you're checking the WRF, the HRRR, the HRW, the iWindsurf models. Make sure you're checking those very, very frequently because they update those very frequently. Also, make sure that you're watching the cold fronts because as the cold fronts come through, the wind often changes. Sometimes they change prefrontal, so sometimes the cold fronts, before the cold front gets there, the wind will change. Sometimes the wind won't change until the cold front gets there, and sometimes the wind won't change until after the cold front has gone through. So watch, where is the cold front, and what is it doing to the meters in that area as it's coming through? So if I know a cold front's going to approach Buffalo, I'll start watching it when it's in Ohio, and I'll start looking at what are those meters doing as that cold front's going through Ohio, then Pennsylvania, then Dunkirk. So that can really, really help you to pin down and decide which beach you're going to go to. You also want to consider trends in certain areas. So for example, in the Buffalo area, oftentimes if you go to the outer harbor in the summertime, it bubbles there consistently compared to what it does in the open lake a little bit further west from Buffalo. or what it might do in Canada on Lake Erie. So keep in mind certain trends. It's kind of the opposite in the fall in Buffalo. When we get that cold air over the warm lake, then oftentimes it blows really, really hard in the Buffalo Outer Harbor, but it doesn't blow just west of there in the open lake because of the lake effect situation. When that air starts rising, when that warm lake water makes that air rise, then it changes the direction to south on the southern side of Lake Erie. It changes the direction to north on the northern side of Lake Erie. And this is a trend. We can predict this. We know it's going to happen. And if we go to the beaches where it's not going to be windy, we're not going to get to ride. So make sure you go where it's going to be windy. Learn and understand the trends that take place in the Western New York area. It'll get you more sessions on the water, and it'll get you out there in bigger wind. And so that's really what we're all looking for. We're looking for more sessions, we're looking for more wind. So follow these ideas and it will help you to make better use of Big E wind reports. Hey, I hope you get out there real soon. Hope you get a lot of sessions, hope you get a lot of wind. Have a great day.